Hello and welcome to another standard video. Today we are revisiting the colorless ramp deck, which got a surprising number of additions through the Final Fantasy expansion. One of them at 2 mana with a UFO, an 0/4 flyer, so pretty good blocker against aggro, can tap to put a land card from our hand onto the battlefield. So that's a way to set up 4 mana on turn 3 already, since the land enters untapped, and it's also eventually a win condition, since we have some towns in the deck to eventually increase its power. So the UFO can maybe set up a turn 3 Hedron Archive, as well as the Ring, which also taps for 2 colorless. This one can maybe tap down opposing unknown land permanents for 2 mana and 1 life. And then we can keep ramping with Ultima, Origin of Oblivion, a 5 mana 4/4 flyer. When it attacks, we can put a blight counter on target land, and that land now only produces colorless mana and loses its other types and abilities. And whenever we tap a land for colorless mana, we can add an additional colorless. So since our mana base is all colorless lands, it essentially doubles the mana produced by our lands, which can give us a massive mana boost to ramp out some powerhouse cards like Ugin, Eye of the Storms, which is another payoff for the colorless deck, because whenever we cast Ugin and whenever we cast a colorless spell, we can exile up to 1 target permanent that's 1 or more colors. So opposing lands are safe, since lands are colorless by default, and opposing colorless artifacts will be safe too, but everything else will be able to exile. And then the +2 gains 3 life and draws a card. The 0 ability makes 3 colorless mana, so we can maybe still cast another spell afterwards to exile an additional permanent. And the -11 ultimate, which we can get to pretty quickly, can also win us the game by searching up all our colorless spells and letting us cast them for free. And then now Final Fantasy also introduces Summon Bahamut, a 9 mana 9/9 flying saga dragon. So it's both an enchantment saga as well as a 9/9 flying creature. It will stick around for a couple turns, first destroying up to 1 target non-land permanent with the first 2 chapters, so that can maybe destroy stuff that Ugin wasn't able to exile. Then the 3rd chapter will draw 2, and finally it deals damage equal to the total mana value of other permanents we control to each opponent. So that can also be game ending, especially if we found Bahamut off an Ugin ultimate, as we'll have a ton of permanents in play. So that's our plan in a nutshell: ramp out Ugin, control the board, and eventually take over with Bahamut, Ultima, as well as maybe the UFO. And we have some lands that can also help close out the game. 2 copies of Crawling Barrens, a nice mana sink, especially with Ultima doubling the mana from our lands, can sink it all into putting additional counters on the Barrens. We also have the full set of Fountain Port, which can make a bunch of fish tokens, which we can also maybe pump up using Patchwork Banner naming fish. Otherwise we could maybe name Alien to pump the UFO, God for Ultima, can also name Dragon for Bahamut, so it kind of depends on the situation. And then we've got a lot of lands that provide value when they enter the battlefield. The Adventures Inn gaining 2. Then we have 8 Surveil lands with Conduit Pylons and Hidden Grotto, as well as 2 Scry lands with a Crystal Grotto, so those can all help smooth out our draws. If we have a UFO in play, maybe ensure that we find land number 4 to put in play with the UFO's ability so we can keep ramping. And then for more Revolt, another decent mana sink that can discard a card to look at the top X, where X is the number of artifacts we control. We have many of those, and then we get to put 1 card in our hand, so can also dig for the missing finishers. And then we also have the 4 copies of Capital City, which is a town for the UFO. So we have Capital City as well as the Adventures Inn. And then the Capital City can also be cycled if we're maybe flooding out a bit. And then rounding out the deck, we've got some more ways to smooth out our draws with a Scry 1 from Treasure Map. Eventually flips into Treasure Cove, makes a bunch of treasures. So it can also speed up casting Ugin and some of our other curve toppers, and eventually can sack those treasures to the Treasure Cove to draw as well. Then a Maze Mind Tome can activate 4 times, either scrying 1 if we just tap it, or for 2 mana we get to draw a card instead. So another decent mana sink. All these 2-drops we can also cast after playing some of our 4-drops, and besides the UFO we can also rely on the Iron Crag to maybe play some of those 4-drops on turn 3 already. Now this one is legendary, so it's not great to necessarily draw in multiples, but having 1 on turn 2 is great. And then a Soul Guide Lantern, also pretty important if you're going to be up against the Omniscience combo decks, so having some form of graveyard hate can slow them down, so you don't just get combo killed on turn 4. Now, as much as I wanted to try this on the ranked ladder, there's still way too many red aggro and blue-red prowess decks on the ladder, and those are just going to run you over. Even with the new additions like the UFO and the life gain from Adventures Inn, the red decks are just too fast and are going to overwhelm you before you get to do anything powerful. So yeah, let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the draw with keepable hand, I think. 2 ramp artifacts, double tome to improve our hand. And can immediately start gaining life. Opponent's got some ramp as well. So next turn banner plus tome. And our opponent's got archive, so they might also be an Ugin ramp deck. Now I like banner plus UFO. So we can name alien. Could also name elemental here for the barons. Summon Fenrir can ramp. At least if our opponent's ramping out Ugin, they wouldn't be able to get rid of our colorless things. And they may not have Bahamut at the top end. So can surveil and look for some of our payoffs. Treasure map kind of helps, but we already have double tome, so it's probably overkill. So can tome activate, see what we draw. And then tome. And then can still activate UFO. Summon Titan is next milling 5. They get to return lands and then pump a creature up. That is one large guy. Opponent is playing Summon Bahamut alongside Ugin and Nissa as well, so no shortage of curve toppers. So we're in trouble. So activate UFO. Scry. And then Capital City I'm gonna decline. Can scry again in upkeep. Say no to the pylons. And then let's see if I draw with Tome. I'm not gonna have the mana to cast an Ugin, so let's just take our draw step first. Another Surveil land. So I'll put that in first. A Lantern, I guess, stops some of the effect from Titan. Although, do they have any lands in graveyard? Just the one. So not that impactful. Can now draw with Tome. Find Ultima. Can cast it. I'm gonna decline here, I think. Although if I transform it, I can equip. If I activate the UFO, and then this is a 7/7 on defense. I guess it helps. So this makes 4 mana, so I won't be able to banner first. Alright, can hold off the Overlord now. And World Wagon's next. And Archive's gonna go digging. So we take 8. Make sure to put the upkeep stops for Maze Mind Tome. Although at this point with Ultima we've got a lot of mana available, so we can just draw with a tome most likely. Find a treasure map. So let me cast the map. I could also activate Fomori Vault. So we have that option available. But I think we'll find something useful here. Treasure map. Tap a banner to scry. On bottom. And draw with Tome. And there we go, Ugin. Exile your Summon Titan. And then I guess if I get rid of the Overlord and the Wagon, they don't benefit from the 3rd chapter. since the saga goes away. So don't have to make mana, since we have 3 already. World Wagon's gone, and our opponent scoops it up. Awesome, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw with a decent hand. Lots of ramp, could still use a payoff, but at least with Tome we've got some card draw. Opponent could be on Omniscience combo, which is not a good matchup unless we find the Lantern. And wow, there it is. So I guess I'll keep that for the time being. Now it's still not going to be an easy matchup. A Lantern's just a speed bump. But at least we don't just die on turn 4 now. And yeah, opponent already discarded Omniscience. So I get to play Iron Crag, play Lantern, exile Omniscience, and then still have Lantern for future Omniscience. Although they might get rid of it with a lockdown. In the previous iteration of the deck I had more hate for this matchup with a full set of Lantern as well as the full set of the Stonebrain, which can just name Omniscience or one of the other enablers. So opponents milled the River Regent, picked up an Awakening. Alright, so we do need to find more lands here. For now, play Banner. Name probably Alien. And then I don't think I can afford to sack Lantern, need to force them to use Lockdown first. They're gonna just draw and discard with the Regents. Take my turn, can cast Archive. And then I'm debating whether or not I should cast another 2-drop, since that might get swept up by Lockdown. So I might just want to keep Lantern available so I can draw with it. Take 1, that's fine. Found the second Lantern, so that's lucky. Alright, so we'll keep on ramping. Archive into a ring. And then could play Tome or I could just pass. Again, force them to use some answer to the Lantern first. We get to draw a card. Alright, they're gonna just start beating down with Anchorage. That's fine by me. Opponent is running Demolition Field, and I didn't make room for basic wastes, even though they're legal in Standard now. So Demolition Field is actually quite effective against us. Found Ugin at long last. So we can cast it. Start exiling stuff. Cannot get rid of the Anchorage all that easily, but we can present a UFO as a blocker. So we'll still draw here. Play UFO. Could have also cycled the city. But yeah, want to respect Demolition Field blowing up my lanes, or they could have auto removal for my artifacts. Small chance they're playing with a new sweeper that can destroy all artifacts. So nothing to bring back, unless they want to just go for the Dragon Storm here to bait out the Lantern activation. Alright, Anchorage gets busy. Maybe they've got a bounce spell. For now I get to block. And our opponent explores. Take my turn. Ugin wants to try and set up an ultimate. Got a backup. So, safest play I guess is deploy another UFO. Even though they get swept up by lockdown. And then just pass. No need to attack since it runs into a Pharaoh's Dispersal. Could also play Tome and draw with it. Sure. Could do that now. Also, I guess we have the Ring to tap a non-land permanent down, so it's not going to work against Anchorage, but could tap other creatures down if needed. Alright, pass it back. 2 blockers to protect Ugin. Next turn we can ultimate and find more threats. Alright, opponent did have Sunfall, so I guess we activate UFO now. Put in the vault. And say goodbye to our aliens. But not enough mana to attack with Anchorage, so Ugin Ultimate is happening. All thanks to Soul Guide Lantern keeping us alive. Otherwise our opponent would have just comboed on turn 4. So, yeah, there's no real need to sack anything. -11. And then just get 1 Summon Bahamut, I think. In case I have more Sunfalls, want to measure my threats. Ultima's legendary. Probably no harm in putting these in play. Couple UFOs. Treasure Map still gets exiled by a lockdown. So something along these lines. And then, yeah, I guess we're looking for Fountain Port. So, play Ugin. That's gonna keep plussing. Found Fountain Port, excellent. So now Banner can name fish.
My counsel.
Can transform Ironcrag. Blow up your token. This one's legendary, probably shouldn't have searched it up, but that's alright. Once again, name fish, in case they wipe the board.
Heed my counsel.
UFO, also quite threatening if we have enough towns on the battlefields.
Knowledge is I am the master of this way as water.
Okay, and then play another archive.
Mine is the power of eons.
And that's good enough for now.
Knowledge is a virtue.
Can pass. See if they have a lockdown or some other sweeper. Stock up. They did just play a second demolition field, so that answering Fountain Port's actually relevant. Can also sack the Hedron Archives to draw 2 each time. And Dragonstorm. So still no Omniscience in Graveyard as far as I can see. Discards Abuelo's Awakening. So yeah, not sure what they're working towards. So end of turn, activate Fountain Port, keeping Fomori Vault available. Make a fish. Activate Fomori Vault. Ditching Ugin. Looking for another Fountain Port. And I think that's the best we can do here. Anything else? I guess we can draw. Not really afraid of getting milled out, unless our opponent can combo. Take my turn. Maybe should have kept the town on top just to pump the UFOs with it. So, can scry with a map. And draw with the Tome. And then Crawling Barrens is also a good mana sink. So we can play that one, and I guess activate the UFOs here. Don't want to tap for more revolts. So we can equip Ironcrag. That's 3 mana. Put it on the fish, although they might bounce it. So then what makes more sense? Equip UFO maybe. Attack. And we'll shut down the demolition fields over Anchorage. Opponent's got the Dispersal for Bahamut. Damage happens. Opponent's at 1. And yeah, we still have options here. Does our opponent have Omniscience in graveyard? They do. So, could be convinced to pop the Lantern and play another one. Just so they can't threaten to combo twice.
I grant you a boon.
And then we just want to spend the rest of our mana pumping Crawling Barrens and making a fish token. Opponent casts Archaeologist. Finds a Roadside Blowout on the UFO. And they're finally gonna throw in the towel onto the next one. Alright, we're on the play with a promising hand. Need to find more lands to put in play with the UFO. And then we can ramp with it and the Ironcrag. Swamp into Duress. Yeah, it's pretty effective against us. Takes Ugin. Not too surprising. I think I'm still down to play the UFO. If they remove it, then I can still Ironcrag plus Tome next turn. UFO down. Ultima is potentially a nice one, although against mono black it's unlikely to live. Treasure map I'll keep. So no need to scry with Mazemind Tome unless we need to find something else. So yeah, opponent's keeping up removal, so it's not going to be the best turn to play Ultima. Instead I can play Treasure Map, scry, and draw with Mazemind Tome, which seems like a better use of my mana. And then we might find a window to play Ultima, and then immediately make use of the extra mana. Now Bloodletter's scary. Ultima does have flying, so it can maybe get in the way, but I doubt it. Crawling Barrens. I could decide to keep just to have a land for Ultima. So take my draw step. And then tap Ironcrag first, so we have 2 mana left over. Which can still draw with Mazemind Tome. If we get to untap with Ultima, that would be great. But yeah, Shieldred's Edict will take care of it, unfortunately. So response, we can draw. So we're taking at least 4. Take or draw. Surveil. Then I can maybe scry and then draw with Tome. Another banner is not needed. So if I draw, I could still maybe cast a 4-mana spell. Okay, banner it is. And we'll name Fish. And then I can still cycle Capital City. But we are under pressure, especially if the Slasher shows up in conjunction with a Bloodletter, or just the Unholy Annex. But our opponent passes, so they have more removal available, presumably. The Sanctuary could still animate, and that also represents a lot of damage with a Bloodletter. Found Ultima, so I'll take my draw. Step 1, Pylons. Found Ugin, so I can draw into it. Let's see, can I cast Ultima? Maybe if I flip Treasure Map, 3 treasures, sack all 3 plus 2 lands to cast Ultima. 2 mana to draw Ugin, and then I can still cast it. Yeah, I guess that's a play we can make. I probably don't even need to sack all the treasures here. Keep that on top. So let's say I sacrifice 2 treasures. Play Ultima, draw, cast Ugin. And I can just float mana if they had removal here. Iron Crag. I can maybe consider transforming now. So we'll draw with Tome, gaining us some life as well. And draw into Ugin, and cast it. Exile Bloodletter, and then +2. They could still have a Shieldred's Edict to take care of our Planeswalker. Sanctuary animates. That one we cannot exile, since it is colorless. Alright, and then I'll pass. Can cycle this next turn, perhaps. Without a Bloodletter, I'm a lot less scared of just dying. Ultima down. Ugin takes 3. Do have Fountain Port and Crawling Barrens to help protect it. So, let's start by drawing. And then maybe I'll scry before I plan to cycle. Alright, never mind, our opponent scoops it up. Maybe they didn't notice that we couldn't actually exile the Sanctuary here, but I'll take it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Our hand could use a 2-mana ramp effect, but a banner into Archive is still pretty decent. And get to Surveil. Let's say no to another Ultima. But now our opponent knows what's up. Turn-Monster Spear is not going to be good for us. So we're going to be under a lot of pressure from the Prowess deck. Gain 2 of Adventures in seems useful. On the bright side, they might struggle to deal 4 to Ultima. But we might be dead before that's relevant. For now, I guess we can name God to get it an extra point of toughness. Opponent's got the Cutter, plus the Slick Shots that they plotted the last turn, make a Monk token, and probably another non-creature spell to trigger Prowess. And yeah, we're gonna be at 10 life more or less. Can cast Ultima, but they could still threaten lethal next turn. So we'll see. If I get to untap, I can do some damage with Ugin. Stormcatch, draw 2 with Pearl. That's acceptable. And an all-out attack. Am I dead? Not quite, that's 10 damage, so we're at 1. Can gain 2 off Adventures in. Now I can cast Ugin. Still have a bunch of mana left. So we can start exiling things, including the cutter. I really want to gain life here, but I might need the mana. Yeah, if I make mana, I can cast Double Archive and exile an additional thing. Guess we'll start by casting one of them. And then Mentor's the scariest. Yeah, I think I still just gain life. Alright, might still be dead at 6. Well, at least I got to do my thing, so can't complain. But yeah, this is why I would not recommend trying this on the ranked ladder, because this is par for the course. It was a miracle we got to untap with Ultima in the first place. Double Monstrous Rage will be game over. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a keepable hand. Get to Surveil on 1, turn to UFO, hopefully it lives, and we can play the ring on 3. Assuming I find one more land, so we'll Surveil towards it. And up against, turn 1 swamp. And sacrifice, looks like. Found the land. So the UFO has a reasonable chance of surviving. The fact that Ugin Exile is also helpful when facing a sacrifice deck, so they can't recur their creatures out of the graveyard. And Bartolome can already sacrifice 2 things, growing up to a 4/3. But yeah, we got our wish. Gotta activate UFO now. And then Ultima joins the fun here as well. So put in pylons, play ring, play treasure map. And next turn we could potentially play Ugin already. So pylons Surveil. Could use an extra land for next turn. So I think I actually decline the archive. Because yeah, with a land we can cast Ugin. Otherwise we'll have to wait another turn. And does our opponent have a turn 3 Sephiroth? They would be close to transforming it already. They just need a little bit of extra sacrifice fodder. For now, take 3. And yeah, there's Sephiroth. Transforming into the one-winged angel. And we found the land for Ugin. So let's Surveil. Want to find cheap, colorless cards now to trigger Ugin. If I were to play Ultima first, then I only have 4 mana afterwards, so that's not enough for an Ugin. So yeah, we'll keep it simple. And then could make an argument for exiling Bartolome first. Because otherwise, if I target Sephiroth, they just sacrifice it to Bartolome and grow it. And without Bartolome, it's a lot harder to transform Sephiroth in one go. Still have the UFO on defense. Ugin will draw. But yeah, it's possible they have removal for Planeswalkers specifically. So then the game's not over yet. Sephiroth moves to attackers. Do you sacrifice the insect? You do. We'll try and block. If we still had a land to put in play with the UFO, we could also scry with treasure map. So yeah, this deck is not opposed to drawing lands every turn, which is also why we're playing 26 total. Opponent does have a backup Bartolome. And a Gorehound. So the Gorehound trying to set up a Raise the Past. And a Nesting Bot too, so they can transform Sephiroth if they'd like. I think we can still handle a transformed Sephiroth, since Ugin can gain some life back. So yeah. And they will sack the Gorehound now too. And that's the 4th Sephiroth trigger, which means they get the 1 winged angel. They also have an emblem now. Take our turn. And then step 1 has to be Ultima. Tapping the ring. And then I can still archive, take it from there. Exile Bartolome first. They're gonna let it go since they're not sure if we have a second spell to exile Sephiroth. This is gonna plus. Play archive. Exile Sephiroth. And then I could activate the UFO to hit for 3. Or I can just pass either drawing with archive or scrying with map. I guess we can do both with the UFO putting in Barons. So yeah, the UFO plus Ultima is also combo, since putting additional lands in play further enables the ability. Opponent's looking to Raise the Past, bringing back 3 1-drops. That's fine by me. Nope, it's gonna be a Blood Witch. If Ultima gets to attack, we can maybe shut down some of their white sources. 3rd Bartolome. And yeah, Ugin can just ultimate here, so that should be game over. But I'm happy if they stick around for a while. So I can first scry. Fountain Port wouldn't be bad for closing out the game, but we can maybe look for Bahamut. Although Ugin can just find it with a -11 ultimate, and yeah, our opponent has seen enough. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Hand seems reasonable. Treasure map can also accelerate Ugin, although we'll surveil to maybe look for some other cheap plays. Hidden Archive is also a good way to set up Ugin. So we've got our curve taken care of, and Hidden Grotto, so it could be the mirror match, as an Overlord hits the graveyard, so maybe not quite. Could be more of a combo deck with the Hideaway card of the Beanstalk. Alright, let's keep on surveilling. Grotto, probably not needed. Play Banner, can scry. And this will name... Let's go with Fish. When in doubt. And a World Wagon's next. So that lets them ramp as well. Also a good way to pressure Ugin if we can't exile it first. Iron Crag I can still cast after I play Archive. And that in turn can still scry with a treasure map. Although I guess we had a spare mana regardless. I want to look for backup threats in case Ugin gets removed, and a treasure map can eventually draw them. Also a cheap way to trigger Ugin to exile something else. And treasure maps are also good in multiples, since we can draw more cards with the treasures. Hardcast Overlord of the Hauntwoods, drawing with a Beanstalk. So our opponents had a totally functional draw. Might be more of a domain deck. A World Wagon gets to connect. So yeah. Opponent's keeping up with our mana acceleration while dealing damage as well. Don't forget to scry. And then Ugin. As much as I want to deal with the Beanstalk, I think we prioritize the actual threats. So I can just draw with Ugin, transform map, and then use a treasure to cast another map. So we're at least working towards an ultimate. UFO could be useful, just a cheap way to trigger Ugin if it's still around.
Mine is the power of eons.
Now a hardcast Overlord of the Mistmoors, making a pair of tokens. Alright, we get to untap. I'm still happy with the UFO, and I'll preserve the treasure token. Step 1, I believe, scry, see what's on top. Another treasure map I'll take. So Ugin happy to draw, set up the ultimates. Play UFO. Exile Overlord. And draw with Treasure Cove. Maybe should have done that first in case we find Ultima. And then, yeah, can maybe still scry with a map before we consider sacking the archive. Yeah, if I sack archive, I can still cast the treasure map at the very least. Sacrifice archive. Find a backup Ugin, and Lantern. Can exile one more thing. Tempting to get rid of the Beanstalk as well.
Preparation yields success.
If I get rid of the token, we guarantee an ultimate next turn, but maybe we should just aim for the long game. And if they deal with the UFO to hit Ugin for 2, I'm not too upset.
Knowledge is a virtue.
They're gonna just Fate destroy Ugin. So happy we dealt with the Beanstalk now. Another Overlord. This one impended. And then upkeep we get to scry. Find another Ugin, how can I say no? Draw. Scry with map again. Unbottom that one. Play pylons. UFO I can maybe keep. Although I'm sure we're gonna see a board wipe soon. I can wait to deal with Overlord, just deal with the token, and our opponent has seen enough. Alright, so we got to see this newest version of the colorless ramp deck in action. Don't think it's going to be particularly competitive. As I've said, it's going to face a lot of red decks on the rank ladder that are just going to run you over. So unless you have the perfect start with your life gain lands and the UFO to soak up some damage, you're likely going to die before you get to cast any of your cool spells. And when it comes to the Omniscience combo deck, you will need to probably pack a few more copies of Lantern and maybe even Stonebrain in the main deck to have a better chance in that particular matchup. So we're mostly hoping to prey on kind of mid-range decks and maybe other controlling decks like Domain that try to go over the top by going over the top of those decks with our colorless synergies. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. I want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.